Um, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to class. Uh, Today, we are going to be talking about political parties and structure. But before we start, I would like to remind us to drop our names and our party in the chat box, and also to inform our party members and our colleagues that class has started. So I'm going to give us 5 minutes for that so that people it's 5:05 and class has started. So before we start, I would like to take the citation of the facilitator for today. While we do that, you can still talk to your colleagues and message them to join the class. And make sure to drop your name as you would want it in the certificate with the name of your party. Thank you very much. So I'll take the citation of our facilitator for today. Now, let's listen attentively, please. Thank you. Ibiang Livinus is currently a public health and biosafety expert and a professional in politics with over 19 years working in the social sector to strengthen institutional reforms that can lead to social change. He had led several youth and student movements and have been involved in human rights advocacy. He was a former FCT interim chairman of Alliance for New Nigeria, Party ANN, and it was under his leadership that the party built the structures at the local government and ward levels before his ascension to the office of the national vice chairman of the party for the South-South zone after the national convention in 2018. In this capacity, he served in several committees, prominent amongst which is the Security Committee, which he shared, the, partner, the Partnership Committee with other parties for the general elections in 2019. He was also a member of the National Campaign Council of the party and served as the South-South Zonal Director and Chairman of the National Campaign. Ibiang is a graduate of the University of Calabar and holds several certifications in his chosen field. He holds, in addition, a master's in business administration from Ahmadu Bello University and is currently a PhD candidate in international public health. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our speaker for today, our facilitator, Mr. Ibiang Livinus, who is going to be taking us on political parties and structure.
Thank you very much, Moriam. Please confirm you can hear me very well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you once again, and good evening, everyone. Let me take the opportunity to appreciate once again the good work that the Electoral College, had been doing over the past few years. It's amazing to see that this college had actually evolved up to the 16th cohort, and this is really very exciting progress for all of us who have followed keenly the activities of the Electoral College. And this is largely because of the visionary leadership that the executive director and founder, my dear friend, Kunle Lawal, had provided, and for all of the effort that the staff and management of the Electoral College had actually provided in driving this process. Once again, I want to congratulate all of you at the Electoral College for this good work that you are doing and for serving humanity, especially in improving literacy, political literacy in Nigeria and beyond. Let me start by these quotes from Confucius, a philosopher, who said that education breeds confidence, and confidence breeds hope, and hope breeds peace. If you look at the many myriads of challenges and issues that we have in our country, you will largely agree with me that a lot of them stem from political differences that we have. And this is largely because people do not yet have better understanding and appreciation of political systems, political ideologies, and why perhaps political parties actually exist. And so you find a situation where political parties could hardly coexist with other political parties who do not have a common ideology. And I think that setting up the Electoral College and what the Electoral College is doing is very critical to national development, peace, and prosperity. And for that reason, we'll be delving into political parties and structures so that for everyone who is on this cohort, like in the previous cohort, we have a better understanding of political parties, why they exist, and why they need to exist and coexist amongst other political parties for the good benefits of the Nigerian people. Having said that, I'll move straight into the meat of the day. So first and foremost, political parties are fundamental to the democratic process that we have today. And it's important to note that there can be no democracy without political parties. As you know, democracy is all about inclusion. It's all about, participation of everybody, irrespective of their political leaning, belief, or culture. Democracy, of course, as we know, is a form of government that delegates power through an electoral process. And political parties, of course, are the platforms through which power is contested for in any democratic system of government. It's important to note that the history of political parties in Nigeria goes as far back as the British colonization of the nation. And Herbert Macaulay, I'm sure some of us may have heard that name, who is the grandson of Bishop Ajayi Crowther, formed the first political party in Nigeria, which was the Nigeria National Democratic Party in 1922. Now we can begin to trace the development of political parties in Nigeria way back to 1922 to this day, when the Nigerian National Democratic Party was launched. And then came the establishment of the Nigerian Legislative Council to provide some political space for the participation of indigenes. At this time, franchise was, however, limited to 2 cities, which were Lagos and Calabar. You know what franchise means, basically referring to the right to vote. In some other session where we'll be looking at constitutional development in Nigeria, I'm sure you'll get to appreciate why franchise was actually limited to 2 cities, which of course are Lagos and Calabar. We have a more vigorous process of party formation, which was, of course, initiated with the formation of the Nigerian Youth Movement in 1938 and the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroon, as it then were, in 1944, still under the leadership of Herbert Macaulay. So you can see the evolution of the political parties, how they're expanding, and let's see where that gets us to. Then we had the Action Group, which emerged in 1948. And then the Northern People's Congress, which was established in 1951. These parties constituted themselves as political expressions of major ethno-religious, ethno-regional blocs, with the Action Group in the West, evolving from the Yoruba Cultural Association, referred to as the Egbe Omo Oduduwa. And the Northern People's Congress, which of course evolved from the Northern Cultural Association, referred to as the Jamia Mutanen Arewa. And then we had the National Congress of Nigerian Citizens, which started as a national, but later narrowed its base to a cultural association, which was a reflection of the Igbo State Union of the Southeast. It's important to note that these ethno-regional elite blocs struggled against each other in configuring the politics of the First Republic as a contest for, power by the elites of the major ethnic formations, the Hausa Fulani, the Yoruba, and the Igbos. And then you had, because these are the 3 regarded as the major ethnic nationalities. But of course, there are others. And clearly, because these are the major ones that are known, it means that the others, which are in the minority, were largely marginalized. Now, what was the power sharing arrangement in the First Republic? It's during the 1959 elections. It's important to note that no single party was able to win the majority in the 1959 elections. The MPC then decided to combine with the NCNC to form the national government. This brought Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa in as the Prime Minister and Nnamdi Azikiwe as the Governor General on Independence Day in 1960. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe later became the first president of Nigeria in 1963 after Nigeria became a republic, while Tafawa Balewa maintained his position as the Prime Minister of Nigeria. Now, there was, between 1964 and 1955, we had elections, and there was massive electoral fraud in the 1964 and 1965 elections, which precipitated, of course, a political crisis that led to the collapse of the First Republic. And the dissatisfaction in the system led to the splitting of NCNC and MPC, so they could no longer stay together to retain the majority vote in the national government. So as a result, there was some sort of realignment of political parties, owing to the disagreement, of course. So the NCNC had to join forces with a faction of the Action Congress led by Obafemi Awolowo to form what you call the United Progressive Grand Alliance, OPGA, while the MPC, on the other hand, joined with the remaining faction of the Action Group led by Samuel Aduke Akintola to form what became the Nigerian National Democratic Party, NNDP. And thereafter, we had the Civil War, which broke, and then the entry of military into Nigerian politics, Nigeria's political space, then witnessed significant changes in the evolution of political parties. And the period of the Civil War was between 1967 to 1970, and I call this a blackout because it was a civil war. Soon after the war, there was political developments in which, of course, led to what we call the Second Republic. Of course, the First Republic was truncated by the Civil War, and now we had the Second Republic. And in the run-up to the Second Republic, there were 150 parties that were announced. About 50 of them were fully constituted as parties. Only 18 were able to feel that they had any chance of meeting the imposed conditions and submitted their applications. But then the Nigerian state recognized only 5 of them in 1978, and which were the National Party of Nigeria, NPN. We had the Unity Party of Nigeria, the Nigeria People's Party, NPP. We had the People's Redemption Party, PRP, and then we had the Great Nigerian People's Party, GNPP. The 1979 Constitution banned independent candidates from contesting elections and outlawed regional, ethnic, religious, and extremist parties. And this was largely because there was a need to have parties that have national, outlook. So the regional parties were banned. So what was other developments in the Second Republic? One dominant party emerged from the transition process in 1978, and this was the National Party of Nigeria, with roots in, regional politics of the First Republic. So basically what we are saying is that even though we had the MPN, which was more dominant, its formation, of course, drew from some of the parties that existed, in the First Republic. And the founding fathers of the NPN systematically waxed a coalition from the segmented and disparate fractions that constituted the Nigerian political class. So that's basically what we're saying. A lot of the people or personages we had in the NPN were people drawn from different political leanings that evolved from the First Republic. And all the efforts towards building, hegemonic party did not, bear fruit. However, the 1979 elections revealed that the political parties retained strong regional bases and ended up sharing votes without any of them completely dominating the others. Again, what this tells us is that in the First Republic, we had parties that evolved largely from the elite political blocs, which were, the Northern, the Eastern, and the Western blocs. And as at 1979, in the Second Republic, that was also to be the case because we had that the parties had strong regional, basis or background. And the votes were shared according to those regional blocks. Ideological politics was strong with the People's Redemption Party, which was an offshoot of the NEPU, Northern Element Progressive Union, and the Unity Party of Nigeria, an offshoot of the Action Group. So both parties were said to be on the left, while the other three parties were said to be on the right. And we had the blackout again in 1983 to 1985, and this was largely because of the military that struck and removed the civilian government, which was headed by Alhaji Shehu Shagari at the time, because he won the 1979 elections that took place after Obasanjo handed over to them. So the military returned back again in 1983 with General Muhammadu Buhari becoming the head of state. Now that regime did not, only served for 2 years between 1983 to 1985, and was overthrown by the then chief of army staff, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who became the head of state from 1985 and then governed from 1985 down to 1993 as the military president. General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, of course, stepped aside in 1993 after annulling the popular June 12 presidential elections that took place at the time. And he didn't just step aside and pulled out from the military. He handed over to an interim national government headed by Chief Ernest Shimukon. And of course, as we all know, the interim national government was a contraption because it was never contemplated in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As a result, there was a massive outcry against that. Rather than inaugurating the presumed winner of the June 12 presidential election, Bashorun MKO Abiola, the people queried as to why it has to be an interim national government. So there were lots of litigation against that government, and this precipitated some sort of instability within the system. And the then Secretary of Defense, who is the highest ranking officer in the military at the time, General Sani Abacha, had to, overthrow Chief Ernest Shinokan and became the head of state of Nigeria. Now, we had what we call the Third Republic, because the Third Republic never really lasted, but there were quite a lot of activities that took place at the time. And this was also associated with the Republican Constitution, which was drafted in 1989, and the establishment of, new parties, which were later banned by Ibrahim Babangida. And again, the state recognized just two political parties, which were the Social Democratic Party, SDP, which was considered slightly to the left, and the National Republican Convention, NRC, which was, slightly to the right. Like I stated earlier, elections were held in 1993, June 12, and Bashorun MKO Abiola of the Social Democratic Party won, but then General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida annulled that election, and that's why we had General Sani Abacha, who took over in 1993 and ruled actually to 1998, because General Sani Abacha passed on in 1988, and following his demise, there was consultations within the Nigerian state, and General Abdul Salami Abubakar, who was the then chief of defense staff, became the military head of state and constituted the transition committee, which midwifed the Nigerians' progress into what we now call the Fourth Republic, which we are in today. And so the Fourth Republic was initiated through the 1999 Constitution. As of today, it has been amended and largely referred to as the 1999 Constitution as amended. So for its election, the Independent National Electoral Commission recognized only three political parties, the People Democratic Party, the All People's Party, APP, and the Action for Democracy, AD. Following a Supreme Court judgment on the case of Balarabe Musa versus INEC, conditions for registration of political parties were liberalized, allowing more political parties to be registered and exist within the political space. So subsequently, the Nigerian political space, of course, was, widened, broadened, and witnessed some precedented opening of with the emergence of additional 63 registered political parties at April 2011. Prominent among the new political parties are the Action Congress of Nigeria, ACN, the Congress for Progress Political Change, CPC, and the People's Progressive Alliance, PPA. In addition, it's instructive to also know that many small parties took advantage of the liberalization of the political space to register and to register parties, and that have proven to be, not to be viable because political parties, of course, were supposed to be vehicles through which political power is contested for. But then, at this time, we had many small parties that were coming on board, largely because of the funding they could get or leverage from government through INEC, because at the time, INEC was providing some funds to political parties. And of course, you know what happens to these kind of funds. They were largely cornered and not applied for the purpose to which they were supposed to be applied to. So in order to promote credible elections with the existence of strong political parties, Section 78(6) of the 2010 Electoral Act provided INEC with the power to deregister any political party that failed to win any executive and legislative seats in elections. Because you see, political parties could register, get support from government through INEC, from the funding that it provides, but yet do not actually participate in the electoral process, because it's capital intensive to sponsor candidates and all of that. So they do not do that, but then they access these funds and then misapply these funds. So as a result, INEC had to wield the big hammer by the registering political parties that failed to win at least a legislative seat. As a result, only 10 parties won seats in the 2011 elections. On 18th August 2011, INEC deregistered 7 parties that did not contest for any elective office in 2011 elections. They are the Democratic Alternative, National Action Council, National Democratic Liberal Party, Marxist Movement of Nigeria, Nigerians People's Congress, Nigeria Element Progressive Party, the National Unity Party, and there are quite a number of them that were deregistered at the time. And you could find this list in a Daily Trust newspaper of 19th August 2011 on page 3. That's where I extracted some of these political parties that were deregistered by INEC. INEC also announced its intention to deregister more political parties as soon as the numerous court cases by some of the political parties were determined. At the end of 2012, an additional 31 political parties were deregistered, leaving only 27 registered political parties. A full list of, this can actually be found in some of INEC documents. Now, having had the background to political party evolution in Nigeria, we like to look at the Nigerian political landscape and system. What exactly does the political landscape currently holds? There are substantial numbers of critical stakeholders in the Nigerian political landscape. And who are these stakeholders? They are politicians, they are political parties. We have political movements that is not yet political parties, but they are movements. We have the electoral systems, the empires like INEC, anti-corruption crusaders. We have the electorates, the judiciary, legislature, executives. We have the traditional institution, pressure groups, civil society, and situation rooms. And more recently, of course, we have technicians. And look, this is by no means exhaustive. There can be, so many other. I'm sure if you do a stakeholder analysis, you'll find that you have much more than this. But just to give us a sense of, who are the critical stakeholders within the Nigerian landscape. And all of these stakeholders are very important because they help to determine the political culture and form, political structure via which government, of course, is served. As we've noted earlier, political party is defined as an organized group of people with at least roughly similar political aims and opinions that seek to influence public policy by getting its candidate or their candidates elected to various public offices. So that's what political parties do. But take note that one of the key fundamentals of a political party is the similarity in political aims and political ideology. So for people to belong to a political party, they must have a common ideology. So that's what defines the political parties. And parties, of course, are deeply and durably entrenched in our specific substructures of the society. And that's, of course, how it should be. For a political party to make inroads and be able to win elections, it must be deeply and durably entrenched. And I pick those words carefully, deeply because it has to be deep-rooted, not just at the national, but down to the grassroots, and durably because political parties must not just be a one-off thing for purpose of participating in maybe 2023 elections and after that they fizzle out. You can't win election by fizzling out. You can only win election by being durably entrenched. That is, you are able to stay on for a long period, and that enables you to study the ground, study the people, understand the needs of the people and communities, and so on and so forth. That's what makes you win elections, and you have to be there working with the people in line, very much in line or similar to what the Tao of leadership actually prescribes by, Sun Tzu. So those are the kind of principles by which parties are able to get themselves and dear to the cream of the people. So for parties to actually be deeply and durably entrenched, there are things that are very fundamental. One, this has to happen for sustainability and well-functioning democracy. And two, it's important to know that political parties link governmental institutions to the elements of civil society in a free and fair society. And I will explain this because, you see, political parties today are not living up to their bidding. That is the truth of it. We do not see engagement between political parties, civil society groups, members, movements in the society, and so on and so forth. What we have is engagement between elected political officials with the public. That's not supposed to be, that's just one arm of it. We're supposed to see political parties engaging, in discourses around national development, economic development, growth, and all of that. We don't see that happen. And you all can attest to this, because we all live in the Nigerian space. And finally, political parties are necessary for the functioning of any modern democratic political system. And this is of course no-brainer. If you have well-functioning political parties, what it does is that it helps to improve our political systems, and it also helps to improve democratic governance in the country. But like I noted in my intro, what we have is a situation where political parties are not tolerant of other political parties. Nigeria is more or less gradually gravitating to a one-party state, as it were, because the APC will not rest until it captures all the states in Nigeria. As you can see, the way things are going, and this is not just about the APC. There was a time the PDP was the biggest party and had most of the states in Nigeria. So perhaps that's what APC seeks to also recreate or establish in our current system. So we've talked about what political parties are and how political parties can remain relevant, and we say they need to be durably and deeply entrenched in us, substructures in Nigeria. Now, what do political parties do? They solicit and articulate public policy priorities, civic needs, and problems, because this is why they are elected. If you notice, when you go to cast your ballot, right, it is for the political party, because the political party is the one that sponsors the candidate. The political party defines the public policy initiative it is going to implement when elected into office. So the political party must understand what the civic needs are and what the problems of the country are. But if you notice, what we have is a situation where the political parties do not really appraise or appreciate the problems that we have as a country. And then when they get into office, that's when you find the party is now beginning to, try to study what the problem is. And you see, time waits for no one. And as they do that, that's how, they keep rigmaroling. You have a lot of, policy somersaults and so on and so forth. You have lots of trial and error, which of course is the reason why, we have the kind of economic hardship that we have today. What else do political parties do? They socialize and educate voters and citizens in the functioning of political and electoral system and the generation of general political values. If I throw these questions to all of you, I'm sure you have varied opinion and answers. Has any political party educated you? How have the political parties socialized with you as a voter, as a citizen of this country? Who do we have providing political education today? Electoral College. We have the other platform like the School of Policy, Politics and Policy, in Nigeria. So these are the groups, and these are not political parties, but yet they are the ones providing political literacy in Nigeria. Meanwhile, the political parties that are supposed to be doing that are not doing anything. So what else are political parties meant to? Balance opposing demands and converting them into general policy. You see, again, I need to explain this. What we find in Nigeria, and which I find very weird, is the fact that political parties are not tolerant of other political parties, especially ruling political parties are not tolerant to the views of opposition political parties. Rather than take what the opposition political parties are saying and converting them into general policy principles that they can implement, okay, what you find is a situation where they tend to oppress, and attack opposition political parties for providing alternative views to what the government is doing. And they rather would attack the viewpoint of opposition political parties, for even attempting to critique government policies, as it were. So these are the things that we find in our society. And that's why this political literacy classes is being organized to get people to the point that they begin to appreciate the role of opposition political parties, the role of opposition viewpoints within our democratic space, and begin to learn to balance opposing demands and converting them into general policies. This is how political parties should actually operate. What does the political parties do? Activate and mobilize citizens to participate in political decisions and transform, their opinions into viable policy options. Channel public opinion from citizens to government. So when citizens express opinion, political parties are supposed to syndicate those opinions, synthesize them, and put them in the form of policy before government so that the government of the day can actually act on them, because those are actually what the people truly want. So if you're not implementing what they want, then you don't have a democracy, because autocracy is a government by just a few people, and who tend to impose their will on the generality of the other. But democracy is the other way around. It's more like it's a delegated, responsibility to the elected through an electoral process. So in every democratic system of governance, the people are supreme. The government is supposed to listen to the people and not the other way around, and then recruit and train candidates for public office. This last point, it's very important, very, very important. And because it has been so neglected, that is the reason why we find mediocres in political positions. I tell you what, look, political parties they are like the valves or the gauze, or call it the gauge. In any piping system, when you have a gauze in between, it's basically to filter, that and allow clean water to flow through. The political parties are such gateways. Their roles are very important because their role include recruiting and training candidates for public offices. But before even the training is the recruitment process. The recruitment process, which of course has to be democratic, has to do with identifying credible candidates. Because if the parties do not sieve and identify credible candidates before they are thrown up out there for elections, what we have is mediocre people who do not even have any business being in political offices, actually occupying those offices. And you can agree with me that that's what we have in most cases. Certain persons who do not ordinarily have business being in offices, but actually occupying those offices. So that's what we seek to, change from the education that we are getting today. And that's why we say education, of course, breeds confidence, and confidence breeds hope, and hope brings peace. So if we are able to achieve that, it will take us to a stable polity, which is what we all desire. Now, there are political operational imperatives of, every political party. To perform all of these functions that we talked about here about political parties, there are imperatives. What are those imperatives? One, we must understand that political parties and citizens need some rights and obligations guaranteed by the Constitution. And what are those rights? And I call them operational imperatives. They are the right to organization. That is, people must have the rights, must exercise rather, because having the rights already provided, they are in the Constitution. So people must exercise that right to freedom of organization. People must be free to belong to whatever political party they want to belong to, must be free to belong to whatever organization they want to belong to. Freedom to stand for election. People must be free to stand and aspire for, elections. There must not be discrimination, whether on the basis of gender, religion, culture, whatsoever. There mustn't be such discrimination. And then the freedom of speech and assembly. If people cannot feel free to speak up during meetings, then of course you don't have a democracy, because democracy is about inclusion. It's about recognizing the rights of other people, okay? Provision of a fair and peaceful competition among parties and candidates. So an electoral umpire must not favor one political party against the other. No, the competition must be seen to be fair. It must be seen to also be peaceful. And then the mechanisms to ensure plurality, there must be inclusion in the electoral process and contacts with electoral bodies, a level playing field and freedom from discrimination. We talked about that. There must be media access, very important. Media access and fair reporting must be guaranteed by all the media. So we mustn't have media houses that are biased, media outfits that, oppose other political parties and favor the others. I'm sure we can talk a lot about the US elections and the role that CNN and some other media houses are playing. But of course, even in Nigeria, we also have similar situations. And then there has to be transparent and accountable political financing. Look, INEC in its guideline had set forth limits for political party financing. But the question is, to what extent has INEC guaranteed or ensured or demanded compliance with accountability for political party financing? That's another big question, and I'm sure discussions around that can take a whole year to actually exhaustively address. So it's a big issue, but it's important for us to know that political parties ought to be transparent and accountable. And I think in the last elections, only one political party, I stand to be corrected, that I know, that gave accountability to for the funds that it received. And that was the in fact, it's not even the party, as it were. It's actually the presidential movement that actually gave some sort of accountability to the funds that it received within the Labour Party, because it was expected that the Labour Party, as a political party, would give an account of the funds that it received. So we only had that from the Labour Party, but we haven't seen that from other political parties. But these are things that we need to know, we need to be aware of, and so that we can begin to, demand for them, because they have implications for the stability of our polity. So political parties are essential institutions of democracy. Of course, we've been able to establish that. They compete in elections and offer citizens a choice in governance, because when you have multi-party democracy, you have, different candidates, just like we had in the last elections. We had the NNDP had Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. The PDP had Atiku Abubakar. APC had Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Labour Party had Peter Obi. AAC had Omoyele Sowore. And, we had other candidates as well from other political parties. So these are, alternatives that political parties provide. In opposition, they can hold government accountable. These are the roles we are talking about, the roles of political parties. When citizens join political parties, volunteer their time, donate their money, and vote for their leaders, they are exercising their basic democratic rights. It's a right. It's a democratic right that you're exercising by belonging to a political party, contributing to discussions or discourses, investing your time and money and all of that. However, in some countries, political parties do not respect the rights of citizens to participate and are not accountable to voters. And this is not just in other countries. Even in Nigeria, it's the same thing. We hardly see political party giving accounts of stewardship and their finances, even within the party. And these are major issues. But yet, they make a lot of money from sale of funds, in running into billions, of naira. And how those funds are expended is never known to other members of the party, except for, the leadership of those parties. So we also have party management. Of course, if you have political party, there has to be, party management systems, and political parties, of course, are guided in its structure and function by, the following. We had the party constitutions and manifestos. The manifesto, of course, contains the programs of the party. Then we have the code of conduct for members. We have conventions, which are like previous, agreements, resolutions, regulations, party standing rules, and extant guidelines. All of these make up the conventions of that party. Then we have the customs, of course, culture, procedures, practices, e.g. consensus, etc. All of these constitute what we call the customs by which political parties are governed or managed. And then we have judicial pronouncement. Pronouncement by judiciary with respect to political party issues eventually become part of the management of political parties. And then we had the electoral laws, which of course guides political parties' operations. And then Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the ground norm. This, of course, is the guiding document by which every other organization or entity in Nigeria draws inspiration and guidance from. As you know, the Constitution of Nigeria, in enacting its supremacy, did actually provide that any other law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution shall, to the extent of that inconsistency, be null and void. That is where the Constitution exercises supremacy over any other law in Nigeria. So now that we've talked about political party imperatives, management of political parties, the roles of political parties, why do political parties exist, it's important for us to now pay attention to the structures of political parties. And what are these structures? So when we talk about structures, as many of us may have heard, structure everywhere, especially when elections are approaching. We're basically referring to what we have here. The structures of a political party are not some sort of, systems that exist in the heavenlies or in the outer space. They are just these things that we have here. We have what you call the World Executive Committee. We have the World Congress, Local Government Executive Committee. All of these things you are seeing here make up the structures of a political party. And they can be more, they can be less. It depends on the party. I just try to pull this, together, just to give us a sense of what political party structures is all about. But let's take a few examples and, examine them and their functions. So, for instance, the World Executive Committee, as the name implies, this operates at the world level. So we have the World Executive Committee. And what does the World Executive Committee do? One, administration of the party at the world level, raises fund for the party at the world level. It conducts membership drive, drawing up strategies for political campaigns at the world level, mobilizing voters for the party, implement the decision of the World Congress and other organs of the party, receiving the World Auditor Report, and perform such other functions as may be in the interest of the party and as may from time to time be assigned to it by higher organs of the party. So this is the executing arm of the party at the world level, and these are the functions that they perform. Like I said, these functions are by no means exhaustive. It can be more, it can be less. It all depends on the party outlook. Now, having looked at the World Executive, there is also the World Congress. So it's important to note this. The World Executive Committee is like the executive arm of the party at the world level, whereas the World Congress is like the legislative arm of the party at that level. And I'll tell you why. What is the composition of the Ward Congress? The Ward Congress shall consist of all elected political office holders and registered members of the party and shall meet once a year. So you can see that the Ward Congress contains all the members of the Ward Executive Committee. It contains all elected, he said, elected political office holders. This means you are referring to who are the elected political office holders, from councillors to local government chairman, vice chairman, any other elected person at that level, House of Assembly member at the state level who belong to that particular ward, maybe commissioners who are appointed, who belong to that ward, elected officials, whether governor, if the governor is from that particular ward, he belongs. So this is how expanded the Ward Congress is. And what is their function? The Ward Congress receive report of the officers of the ward. Who are the officers of the ward? We are basically referring to the executive committee. Then it receive auditors report, approve the budget of the ward. So you can see it is performing legislative function here. This is why I said the congresses are like the legislative arm at that level in the political party. They elect members of the ward executive committee. So you see, this makes the ward congress bigger than the ward executive. Elect also the ward delegate to the state party congress, where the governorship candidate is elected. That is the party congress. So there are delegates from the ward that are elected who participate in the party congress for the election of the gubernatorial candidate, and then carry out such other function as may be in the interest of the party. So these are the functions of the Ward Congress. Remember, we are talking about the ward level structure of the political party. So we have the local government executive committee. Just like we have the ward, we have the local government. Of course, as you know, the local government is bigger than the ward. So, and what are the functions of the local government executive committee? Please, just a second. So the local government executive committee administers the party at the local government level, so which is a higher level compared to the ward. It raises funds, conducts membership drive, draws up strategies for political campaign, mobilizes voters, implement decisions of the LGA Congress. So you see, the LGA also have a Congress, just like the ward has the ward Congress. So it identifies and resolves political, social, and economic issues of concern to the local government area, receive and implement reports from the wards on membership, fundraising, strategies for political campaigns, and electoral success and mobilization of voters. So it does a lot. So the local government executive oversees all the wards under that local government. It also undertakes general administration of the party at the local government level, implement the decision of the local government congress and other higher organs of the party, employ all secretarial staff for the local government branch of the party, or and perform such other function as may be in the interest of the party. So let me quickly point out that we don't need to confuse the local government area executive committee of the party to the local government area executive. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that, you have the local government officials who are elected at general elections. These are different from the local government executive committee. Here we are strictly referring to the political party, not the public office. The public office is what we refer to as the local government chairman and vice chairman who are elected at, general elections. Now, we have the local government area congress, just like we had the ward congress. And look at the composition of the local government area congress. The local government party chairman and other members of the local government area executive. So all members of the local government area executive committee are members of the local government area congress. And then we have all the national, zonal, and state executive committee members of the party from that local government. So, for instance, if you are in NNDP and you are the national, zonal, or state executive committee member, you are automatically a member of the local government area congress in your state. And then we have the elected local government council chairman, vice chairman, councillors who are members of the party, all members of the national and state house of assembly from the local government area who are members of the party. And then we have members of the board of trustees who are from the local government area. We have all chairmen and secretaries of the ward executive committee, okay, from that local government area. So, you know, local governments are made up of wards. So all the local government, the ward executive chairman and the secretaries are automatic members of the local government area congress, excuse me. Now, we also have 3 delegates from each of the ward of the local government area elected at the ward congress, at least one of whom shall be a woman, all of whom shall cease to function at the conclusion of the congress for which they were elected. So these are the composition of the local government area congress. And these are the functions, some of the functions. Again, like I often say, this is by no means exhaustive. It's just to give us a sense of what each of these structures does at their various levels. So these ones, for the local government area congress, they elect members of the local government executive committee of the party. They elect local government council chairmanship candidates. So the chairmanship candidate who eventually runs for office as the local government chairman is usually elected at the local government area congress. To also elect local government party delegates to the national convention. So the national convention that will elect the national officers of the party and also elect the presidential candidate of the party. The delegates are elected from the local government area congress. And then the Congress also approved the budget of the party at the local government level, and then they receive the local government's auditors' reports, deliberate on it, and also chart a way forward. Now we have other structures of the party. You know, again, this largely depends on the political party in question. We have the state caucus. This is at the state level. You also may have state elders committee. In some places, you have the state executive committee. You have the state party congress. We have the state assembly congress. We have the House of Representative Congress. We have the senatorial district congress. So you can have as many party structures as you can. Everything is based on convenience and your ability to fund all of these structures. And more importantly, it depends on the goodwill and the advantage that will bring to the political party. Now, let's look at the state party congress, which of course is very important. What are the functions of the state party congress? What it does, the state party congress approves the budget of the state branch of the party. Like I said, the congresses are like the legislative arm of the party. Then they elect the officers of the state executive committee. Elect the governorship candidate of the party is elected at the state party congress. You remember we said that there are delegates from the ward congresses that participate in the state party congresses for the election of the gubernatorial candidate to receive report from officers of the party, state officers of the party, and also receive the state party auditors report. These are the functions of the state party congress. So very important structure of a political party. Now, going away from the states, we have the national. At the national, we have what we call the National Working Committee, which composition is made up of, national chairman, deputy national chairman, national vice chairman, usually who represent the 6 geopolitical zones, national secretary, and all of these positions that you have listed here. Okay, they make up the National Working Committee. And they have also functions circumscribed for them in the party constitution, which includes the day-to-day administration, in case of emergency, act on behalf of the National Executive Committee, subject to ratification by the National Executive Committee. And there was the instance where when His Excellency Abdullahi Adamu emerged as the former national chairman of APC, due to electoral imperatives, the neck of the party delegated its responsibility to the National Working Committee so that they're able to respond swiftly to the electoral processes. So, and that's why I said in case of emergency, the NWC can act on behalf of the National Executive Committee. The National Executive Committee, by the way, is always bigger than the National Working Committee. The National Working Committee includes those leaders of the party who are elected at the National Convention. But the National Executive Committee is made up of the National Working Committee plus state chairmen and secretaries, all the state chairmen and secretaries, plus all the governors elected on the platform of the party. They are also members of the NEC, and the president, vice president, if they are members of the party, they are also members of NEC. And then you have some other important appointees of government who are also members. So the NEC is usually bigger than the NWC. So the NEC can actually direct the NWC. Now we also have other functions which include functions that may be assigned to it by the NEC. We've talked about that. And that the National Working Committee meet not less than once every fortnight. And they can meet even more frequently depending on the situation at hand. So in some political parties, you have the National Caucus, and it also have a definition of who and who can be a member of the National Caucus. And here I've listed a couple of them. There's usually the chairman of the board of trustees who sits as the chairman of the National Caucus. We have the national chairman of the party. The president and vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, if they are members of the party, automatically become members of the National Caucus. Then the Senate leadership, House of Representatives, Speaker and Deputy Speaker, the leader, Deputy leader, so all of those. And then you have governors, 6 governors who are members of the party nominated by the President of the Federal Republic, of course, to be members of the, National Caucus. So we talked about the composition of the National Caucus. And remember, I mentioned that there are other appointees who are members of the National, Caucus. What are their functions? Basically, to harmonize the relationship between the executive and legislative arms of government and coordinate the activities and those of the party. And secondly, consider, review, and advise on policies and programs of government. So it's also a structure where certain key decisions are made, very key decisions, very sensitive, matters. And as I often say, the functions listed here are not by any means exhaustive. It can be more than this, depending on the political party. We also have what we call the National Legislative Caucus. And this is also another very important structure of the party, and they function within the National Assembly. So the major function or task of parliamentary groups in the legislatures can be summarized as follows: choosing floor leaders and presiding officers. So the people who choose the leaders of the party, the floor leaders. So so if you go to the National Assembly, you have the majority leader. In fact, from the Senate president, deputy Senate president, majority leader, Senate majority leader, minority leader, chief whip, deputy chief whip, minority chief whip, all of those positions that you see, including committee chairman and vice chairman, those decisions are decisions of the National Legislative Caucuses. So the APC, for instance, has its legislative caucus in the National Assembly. That's where the decisions are made as to who becomes a majority leader and who heads what committee. The PDP also have its own legislative caucus. Labour Party also has its own. So any party that has representatives in the National Assembly have a legislative caucus where decisions with respect to who becomes, what is actually made. So that's their function. That's where those decisions are made. Then we have the NEC, what we call the National Executive Committee. I've talked about that earlier. And I said the NEC is bigger than the National Working Committee. And the NEC is superior to the National Working Committee, so it can direct the National Working Committee. Here are the composition of the NEC. And this, again, I always put this caveat because it depends on the political party. So for other political parties, it may be different from what I have here. And that does not in any way invalidate what we have here. It's basically to give us a sense of what the composition of the NEC is all about. So you have the national chairman, which shall be the chair of the NEC, then chairman and secretary of the board of trustee, the national deputy chairman, all other members of board of trustee, national vice chairman from the geopolitical zones, all members of the national working committee. Then you have all the state governors, all former national chairman and deputy chairman, national secretaries, chairman and secretaries of board of trustees, national women leader, and then president and vice president of the country if they are members of the party, including the leadership of the Senate and House of Rep. And so on. So they make up the NEC. So you can see it's a very big structure. When the NEC is going to meet, it's usually a very big structure, platform. And what are the functions of the NEC? The NEC is the only organ of the party that convenes the National Convention and appoints a convention organizing committee. So what it means is that the National Working Committee cannot convene the National Convention. It's only the NEC that can convene that structure. It is only the NEC that can appoint a convention organizing committee, which shall circulate convention information in advance and ensure that the concerns of membership are reflected in the agenda. The NEC also carries out the decisions and instructions of the National Convention. Remember, the National Convention at the national level is like the legislative arm, and it is the highest decision-making organ of the party because the National Convention elects the presidential candidate rather. It elects the national officers of the party. It can amend the constitution, review it. It can make policy that can, stand. So whatever is done at the National Convention is supreme. So it supervises and directs the work of the party and all its organs, including the national, zonal, state, and local government, ensure that all organs of the party function democratically and effectively. It initiates policies and programs. I talked about that earlier. So all of these functions that you have here are the functions of the NEC. So the NEC is very, very important. And then we also have the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees also have its composition, and this is also based on the political party. So for different political parties, the composition may be different. And the Board of Trustees also have its functions, which of course has to do with ensuring the highest standards and morality in all party activities. Whether that is the case today is another big question. Harmonize, coordinate, review, and advise on administration, programs, policies, and activities of the party. It coordinates the sourcing of party funding, the Board of Trustees, and it is vested with the assets of the party and serve as its custodians. So the party assets are vested in the Board of Trustees. They retain the assets of the party, okay, for that political party. And it mediates in disputes, undertake all other functions and activity as may be referred to it, to resolve. So that's the Board of Trustees. So finally, we come to the biggest of all the structures of the party, which is the National Convention. This is the biggest and the highest decision-making organogram of the party. It is the highest structure. And it has the national chairman of the party, which shall be the chairman of the convention, and other members of the National Executive Committee. Remember, all of those people we mentioned in the NEC are also members of the National Convention. And they are all listed here. That's what we have all listed in this box here. And then we have the members of the Board of Trustees. So that's what we have here in terms of composition of the National Convention. Now, there are critical functions of the National Convention. For me, the most critical is the election of the national officers of the party. You see that? So it can elect and remove national officers of the party. So the national officers of the party can only be removed at a national convention, not NEC. NEC cannot remove national officers of a party. It's only the national convention that can do that. Secondly, the election of the presidential candidate of the party is done at the national convention. And these are two very critical functions. The other third function is that it is the only structure of the party that can amend or review the constitution of the party. Above all, the National Convention shall have supremacy in all matters pertaining to the party, and all officers and organs of the party shall be bound in the exercise of their function by the decisions of the National Convention. This is what makes the National Convention the absolute authority over the party. And there are many other functions, but I just highlighted these critical ones because they override a lot other. So these are the functions. Again, summarized in a way that it's easy for us to relate with. It's basically the same thing I just brought in here. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the structures of, political parties that we've been talking about. And I'm happy that today we can relate to what political party structures are. And also note that partnerships also are part of political structures because we have political partnerships. We also have mergers. When political parties merge, they form a structure, that can be unbeatable. We have coalitions like the Coalition of United Political Parties. These are also structures of, political systems. And there are many others. You can think about others. We can think about others. So with what we've known today, I think I believe we are better informed about what political parties are and what political parties structures also are. And also we've had some background into political party evolution. So these are the references. So thank you very much for your attention. I think I will hand over to our moderator for today.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. That was such an informative class. It was so insightful. Thank you very much for taking your time to take us on this.
Thank you.
So we'll be taking questions now. So if you have any question, kindly drop them in the chat box. I'll raise your hands and I will ask you to unmute. Lucky Imo, I've asked you to unmute. Kindly ask your question now.
Thank you very much. I want to say a very big thank you to our facilitator today and the entire crew of this great school. Let me put it that way. But very quickly, I want to talk about cross carpeting among political parties or politicians. What what do you think about this? For me, majorly, why I'm asking this is because when we look at political structures outside here, we see allegiance, we see commitment to political parties based on ideologies. I know there are also party switching outside here, over there as well. However, it's not very rampant and common. So, what do you think about all this switching allegiance from one party to another and all of that? So that's first question. Second question. Now, why uh, do we? Is it okay that when politicians switch cross carpet here in Nigeria, people holding office, there is a fuse about them. They should drop their. They should vacate the seat and let the party voting another person, because I've also seen that in other climes when people switch, it's because they become uncomfortable with the leadership or the policies that are in place at that time, and then they move over to where they are more comfortable, and they don't talk about them leaving their seats in those claims. So I just want to know your opinion and what you think could be done to, because it's so rampant over here, what could be done to look at it and make people to be more loyal to political parties and build up a good structures, because people just abandon their parties in the middle of nowhere just because maybe their personal uh, ambition was not fulfilled. They just leave and that party crumbles. Or sometimes people run on the platform of a political party, and when they get what they want, they abandon that party. We saw a lot of people in the last elections. They contested on the platform of Labour Party with the whole crowd behind them, the support and everything. And most of them have left the party. So they're not nurturing the party again. So what do we
All
do
right.
about all of this?
Thank you. I think I got your question. A very quick one. This is typically not new to us. It has become like a norm in our political system. First of all, what did our constitution say? Because again, that's where it begins from. Our constitution clearly provides that anyone running for public office, whether as a governor or a legislature, right, must be sponsored by a political party. So taking, for instance, the legislature, the law is very clear on those elected into the legislative arm of government that if you are sponsored into office by a political party and you got into the legislative chambers and decide to abandon your party to another party, you automatically lose your seat. You automatically lose your seat. Okay? So because the party then can fill that position, because that seat is for the party, it's not for you. That's what the law said. But you see, in Nigeria, we have a peculiar problem. We have a peculiar problem in that we've not had enforcement of this happening, such that when people switch from one party to another, there are no consequences. No consequences. You can't even see where such seats of individuals who depart, who leave their party for another, are declared vacant. So there are no consequences for all of this. However, the law said for you to actually switch from your political party to another, there must be crisis in your political party such that the division is so obvious. But we've had situations where people move from one political party to another, even where there was no crisis. And that's actually the case in Rivers State that has become intractable. That is the case because there was no division in the political party. But have we had any court make a clear-cut pronouncement on that? None. So this is the problem that we're having. And that's why this impunity has festered up to this date. So one, as much as the law does not allow you to switch from one party to another unless there is crisis, what it means is that there are clear provisions of the law that when you move, you lose your status. And that's what the law says. So how I feel may not be important, but there are people, there are law officers who are supposed to actually, and the executive who are supposed to ensure that these particular provisions of the law are executed when once they are in breach of. So that's just the situation. Like you said, in other clients, it may not be the same. It is based on the constitution of those countries. It may not give the same provision that the Constitution of Nigeria actually provided with respect to cross-carpeting and all of that.
All right, thank you very much, sir. There is a question in the chat box from Joshua. He's asking, why are civil servants deprived of this basic right of joining political parties and participating actively in the democratic process?
Very good and important question. The civil servants are supposed to be apolitical. The civil service is the machinery of government. It is not supposed to be tethered to any political party. In fact, the semblance of peace, stability that we have today is because you have an apolitical civil service structure. The only thing that the civil servant can do is to exercise his or her franchise. And of course, as you know, is a secret ballot, okay? But in terms of political affiliation, no civil servant is supposed to belong to any political party, unless that civil servant has ceased to be a civil servant, either by way of retirement, then you can affiliate. But while you are in service as a civil servant, you are not supposed to belong to any political party, because if that happens in this country, then I can tell you we'll have what we consider today as instability will just be a child's play. And of course, you can think about it. So that's actually the reason the trial behind why civil servants are meant to be apolitical.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Oladapo Shegun, I've asked you to unmute. Kindly ask your question in 30 seconds. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Am I audible enough?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you
Can
very
you
much.
hear?
Yes. My question is very simple, and I believe, and it is about the local government, about political parties majorly in Nigeria, how they operate. Is it allowed? Because we talked about party structure, and we've seen over years that if a political party doesn't have enough structure uh, throughout the federation, they tend not to even win in some cases. And also, INEC usually deregister them due to the lack of structure. So my question is, can't is it necessary that a political party must establish its structure across board before they can be recognized and allowed to participate in in the electoral process, or there's a provision where they can just, start from somewhere? Take, for instance, I want to have my own political party and I want to start from my locality, maybe contest for councillorship and chairmanship positions. After that, if I gain grant, I can move on to, okay, going to state, governorship, House of Assemblies. After that, I can, graduate gradually like that. Is that allowed, or they must just structure, have a established structure throughout the country? Thank you, sir.
Okay, so first of all, just to correct that, INEC does not register political party for um, the lack of structure. What INEC relies on in the registering political party is the inability of the political party to secure seats at elections. But for political party to be registered, it must have a national outlook. That means at least you must be in not less than 2/3 of the states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including the FCT. That's one conditionality for you to be registered as a political party. And then when you do that, you can then go ahead as a founder of the political party to ensure that your political party wins seats in your local government, because you want to make sure that you can. Let me tell you, a lot of the political parties that you find today, okay, the reason why they are still existing is because you may not see them at the national level, but then they were able to secure seats at the at the ward level, at the local government, as councillors. They are able to secure seats at perhaps at the state House of Assembly, but you may not hear them at the national level. But at the state level and at local government level, those parties were able to secure some seats. That's why they are still existing, and that's the basis for which INEC can actually retain you in the political party register of the country. So those whole powers are circumscribed within the functions and authority of the Independent National Electoral Commission. But fundamentally, you must be able to win elections to be able to retain your name in the political party registers of INEC.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Leke Mene, I've asked you to unmute. Kindly ask your question now.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity. Okay, my question is this. Like in my ward, I'm from River State. In my ward, we have the unit level, which is the unit leaders. But in this structure, I didn't see unit as part of the structure. I would like you to explain more on that. That is one. Then the second question is that, why is it that most political parties don't make it very easy for people to register as a member, but they will prefer people to be followers? Thank you.
Okay, so I did leave a caveat when I was going into the party structures. I did say that what you have here on this slide is not exhaustive. That based on the political parties, you may have more structures than what I have, elucidated here. So I'm not surprised if you have unit level structure. In fact, there are some parties that have community structures, so you have all manner, and some of also have they may have secondary school structures of the party. They may have university campuses, university structures of the party where the university committee are members. So you can have as many. It depends on the on the political party. So what you have here that we talked about is not exhaustive, but just to give us a sense that this is how the party structures are. What was the other question you asked again? What was the second question? Hello, moderator, what was the second question the person asked? Is the person still on the call? Okay, so the second question was, why do political parties make it difficult for people to become members of the party, but rather will prefer to have followers? I don't think any political party makes it difficult to become member. Well, I don't know what your experience is in the political party of your choice, but I know that if you want to register with any political party, all you need to do is to go to your ward and meet with the ward level executive and you'll be registered. That's all. Or units, as the case may be, you that is from River State, you can go to the unit and register at that level. I don't think it's difficult. I'm not aware because I've done that in the past, and even when I was, party chairman, we've also done that here. We made it, people are welcome. We welcome people into the party. Yeah, so over to you, moderator.
Okay, thank you very much. Rajabu, I've asked you to unmute and ask your question. Rajabu, can you unmute? Okay, Samsudin, I've asked you to unmute and ask your question.
Oh, yes, can you hear me?
Can I proceed with your question?
No. Am I on air?
Yes, we can. You can go ahead, sir.
Okay, my question is on when you relate between the two phases, democratic phase and the blackout phases I have seen through, but observing or looking it outside Nigeria, you may find that all the leaders during the blackout season, I'm talking here about Babangida, I'm talking about Sanabacha, and other leaders have become famous, and they are even studied in the history of Nigeria more than how these democratic leaders are studied. Here I'm talking about these democratic leaders such as Jonathan and others. What has made these people more famous than these who were ruling during the democratic? And maybe these political parties are blind or are just blackmailing the people in this moment of ruling, etc.
Very, very good question. I truly love your question. And to be honest, I think that's actually a research question. I'm hoping that the Electoral College will take that up and do some studies on it. But again, this is my perception of why those leaders you talked about seem to be more studied than the democratically elected leaders. The military rulers ruled by fiat, by decree, and as a result, they were able to do a lot of things by fiat. So if you compare the speed of implementation of policies, the speed of execution of certain projects within the military, and if you also look at human rights records, which of course may have attracted so much attention both within and both from locally and internationally, that kind of brought them to to the fore, much more than what the leaders we had on who are democratically elected. So the many things that were done during military regimes, incarceration of people, even without trial, people can be, kept in detention for as long as the human rights record, much more. If you look at Nigeria, for instance, the 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 regimes that achieved the creation of states, which have been one critical yearning of most of the people in Nigeria, are the military regimes. They created most of the states that we have in Nigeria. But under the democratically elected leadership, it's been a challenge actually creating more states, as it were. So that's perhaps for me, again, I said this is my personal opinion, could be the reason why we had these leaders as being so studied much more than the democratically elected leaders we have in the country. So there was so much attention. For instance, no democratically elected leader could wake up and annul an election, a national election. None. It was only a military regime that was able to do that. And that was the regime of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who annulled the June 12 elections. No democratically elected leader of this country can disband political parties. It is only INEC, though an executive structure, that has the authority circumscribed within the act that established it to actually deregister. And even when it does so, the parties concerned could go to the judiciary, okay, to appeal against such decisions. But that's not the case in the military regime. Under a military ruler, he can disband political parties and arrest all the leaders and lock them up. So this is why they seem to be, so famous, because of the things they're able to do. For every step they want to take, they first enact a decree and then they go ahead and execute it. But that's not the case with democratically elected leaders, because they have to go through the National Assembly or the state's legislature, as the case may be, and then some decisions are subject to the interpretations or arbitration by the judiciary. So this is what kind of balances the authoritativeness of the executive or the elected leaders as compared to the military regime. The military regime is unitary, it is authoritarian in nature, and you dare not oppose it. So that's why they are famous, and that's my opinion. There can be more. Over to you, moderator.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, Samsudin, Dr. Arnold. Dr. Arnold, you can unmute and ask your question, please. Thank you.
All right. Good evening to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Livinus and the hosts for this wonderful presentation. Thank you. Please, my question is, looking at Nigeria today, you find out that political parties are no longer ideologized. How do we, as an electoral college, as the people, ideologize our political parties, in the sense that every political party outside the shores of Nigeria is based on ideology? People don't just join political party as just a tool of getting a position or getting an office or to office. People join political party because those political parties have an ideology that they are keen, have ideologies that they like and they appreciate or want to subscribe to. But here in Nigeria and Africa, you find out that our political parties and members of all those political parties do not have any ideology. And people who have subscribed to them are just subscribing as if looking at what happened in 2014. People left PDP and other political parties and formed APC. And from there, they formed Labour Party. Looking at Labour Party today, you find out there is no single ideology in the Labour Party itself, even with this name as Labour. So how do we, as a people, ideologize these political parties. Make people understand that every political party is based on ideology. And if you don't subscribe to that ideology, you will not become a member of that party. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anucha. Another very good question, and I love the way you put it. How do we ideologize? Again, this is actually very interesting conversation, you know, and it gets interesting the more we delve into it. If you approach the APC today and tell them they do not have ideology, they'll tell you they do have an ideology. If you approach the PDP, they will also tell you they have an ideology. If you have approached the Labour Party, they'll tell you they have ideology. I'll pick a word. I'll pick what, you know, His Excellency Peter Obi said during the campaign. He said, look, the ideologies of most of these political parties are actually similar. Okay? There is just a very thin line between the ideologies of the political parties. And I must tell you, one of the things that I was confronted with when I was chairman of the party here in FCT was people asked, do we actually have an ideology? And I just picked up the party manifesto and I read out the ideology of the party to them. So the truth of the matter is that it may not necessarily be so that no party has ideology. But the big question is, what is your political ideology as an individual? What is your ideology about politics? So, first of all, we must have a clear sense of what our beliefs, what our supposed belief is about our political beliefs are. We must be very clear about what our political beliefs are. When we are clear about our political beliefs, that's why for all of us in this cohort, I will advise, take a piece of paper and take your pen. Write out what your political beliefs are. Once you write them out, pick the constitution of the different political parties and look at the one that aligns or for which your beliefs, political beliefs, aligns with the party ideology. That's how you choose a political party. And then we have what we call code of conduct for political party. I talked about that when I was looking at those political imperatives for, you know, political parties. So there is a code of conduct. We must stick with the code of conduct of that political party. And don't forget, Nigerian Constitution provides you the freedom for association, the right to freedom of association. That means you can decide to belong to this party. If by tomorrow you discover that there is a disalignment between your political beliefs and the ideology of the party, for God's sake, there's no one that said you can't move out. But the challenge is, if while in the course of being a member of that political party, you vie for an elective position and that party sponsors you into public office, then you owe a duty to remain in that party and serve that party, because the reason why you were elected was because of the party ideology and manifesto. That's why you have to remain there. But if you are not elected, you are just an ordinary member, and you find a disalignment between your political beliefs and the ideology of the party, you are free to exit and join another party that aligns with your political beliefs. So what I'm basically saying is that, one, just like I said to people, we had our ideology as a party at the time. If you go to PDP, APC, Labour Party, they will tell you they have their political ideology and they will share with you. But the big question is, how does their political beliefs align with our political party? So one big assignment for this cohort, sit down, write out what your political beliefs are, and look at the constitution of the parties and see the one to which your political belief aligns with. That's where to go to. That's how you choose a political party. And while you are there, contribute to identifying what that ideology is and expanding it. Become an advocate of the party. If you listen to, let me give you an example. This man, Kenneth Okonkwo, when he was a spokesperson of the Labour Party presidential candidate, if you listen to him, he expounded on the ideology of the Labour Party. And It was one person I saw who could communicate the party manifesto clearly without even reading from a book. That is how to be an advocate of a political party that you belong to. But this is not what we find in most of the political parties. And I stand to be corrected. Look at the political landscape and you will see for yourself. So thank you very much. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, sir. Omojave, I've asked you to unmute. Kindly ask your question now.
Okay, hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for the lecture. I've actually learned a lot, but I have something like a contribution and also a point of, let me just go ahead with it. First, you spoke about that civil servants are not permitted to be a member of political party. But I think personally, there's a Supreme Court judgment in 2018 that actually says contrary, drawing his power, because even the Nigerian Constitution has already invalidated that a civil servant cannot be a member of a political party from, I think, Section 4, Chapter 4 or so, which talks about the fundamental rights of a Nigerian. Nigeria has freedom of association. So by that, the civil service rule cannot actually invalidate the Constitution, because every other rule that runs contrary to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria remains invalid, null and void. So I think even Femi Falana, in one of his articles I read some time ago, I think she's the current head of service, says that civil servants should stay away from politics. Femi Falana, they say no. The Supreme Court's judgment is very clear on this, that civil servants can be members of political party. One and number two, during the Edo State governorship primaries, I think I was fortunate to be in when one of the candidates declared for APC. His name is Dr. Umahihe. He's a retired, I think, head of, sorry, not what was he called? PS, Permanent Secretary in Ministry of Agriculture, so at the time. He said it, and it was very clear. He said, I have stayed away from politics before, but after the Supreme Court judgment of 2018, I went back to dust my party card and continue. I started following my political beliefs. So I think the Constitution of the Federal Republic gives the civil servants every right to be members of a political party, and the Supreme Court judgment of 2018 also affirmed this, that the civil servants can be members of political party. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Again, I wouldn't want us to... thanks for your contribution. I have not looked at that Supreme Court judgment, but I'm going to research it and I'll look at it for, academic purposes. But this is the point. I'm sure you've had the uproar concerning appointment of persons into the Independent National Electoral Commission. There's been quite a lot of uproar with respect to appointment of politically exposed persons into the Independent National Electoral Commission. Remember, the Independent National Electoral Commission is an executive body, and it is actually supposed to be an unbiased umpire. Now, imagine that a ruling party appoints all, for instance, we have APC today, appoints all APC commissioners, national commissioners of the party. If you are in the opposition, will you expect any credible outcome from the conduct of that electoral commission? Don't forget, as an executive body, it has civil servants in there. This is the reason why we say the civil servant is supposed to be apolitical. But the civil servant has rights under the Constitution to exercise his or her franchise. But in terms of affiliation to political party, that is what the civil servant cannot do. Like I said, I'm not aware of that Supreme Court ruling. I'm going to look for it. But I just gave you this example just to give you a sense of what could happen if you have civil servant. Let me give you, without mentioning names. In 2015, I sent in a proposal for appointment into one of the boards, federal boards. I had a permanent secretary who took interest in my CV and my proposal and committed to assist with presenting my proposal to the selection committee. 2 months down the line, I went to pay him a visit, and I'm talking about a senior permanent secretary. I don't want to mention the office and the name. And he said to me, my friend, I have been labeled a PDP member. I'm not going to last in this office. And he did not last in that office. He was removed. So if you are labeled an opposition party member as a civil servant, you're already on your way out. This is why the civil servant has to be insulated completely from the vagaries of political manipulations. This is very important and very instructive. And that's why I said the civil servant must remain apolitical. Because once you are politically exposed, then of course you cannot serve in that position as a civil servant if you have another elected person who does not belong to the party that you are affiliated to. So these are the dangers, and that's why I said you cannot have a civil servant be political unless you have retired. If you have retired, you can affiliate. But as much as you are in the civil service, you are not supposed to affiliate to a political party. However, you can exercise your franchise. But like I said, I will look out for that Supreme Court ruling and I will study it to understand what it is. And in our next cohort, perhaps we'll have an opportunity to, discuss that. Thank you. And over to you, moderator. But thanks again, Elaine, for bringing that up.
All right, thank you very much, sir. It has really been an insightful one, an educative lecture. So I know we would all want to hear more from him, but we are within, the time is not on our side. So we'll take one more question before we bring the class to a close. Well, official, I've asked you to unmute. Kindly ask your question now.
Hello, good evening, good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this thoughtful and insightful presentation. So, I would like to ask, my question is, one of what he said during the presentation, for political parties, what they are. Right to paraphrase paragraph 1 and then also 2. You said the political parties are essential institutions of democracy, and which is right. They are meant to actually prefer democracy in good governance whenever they've got elected officials in governance. But we find out that most of these political parties today, whenever they are elected into office, rather than deliver on the mandate of good governance through their democracy that they were brought into, which is democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people, you discover that they don't act on that. Rather, they leverage on the ideology of the party. This isn't just for the ruling political party that we have at the moment, but even for the past governments that we've had. They've always had to leverage on the ideology of the political party. So it is actually what has been constituted in the political parties that they use in governing those who have brought them into power. Why is that? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Every political party has its manifesto and its programs. So what that means is this. During campaign, and this is very important, that's why we're having this, the Electoral College is organizing this. I want to emphasize this. During political campaigns, the parties campaign on their manifesto. Their manifesto. The assumption is that the needs of the people have been encapsulated in the party manifesto. And I'll give you some examples. Let me use the case of Labour Party. During the campaign, and before even the campaign began fully, the Labour Party presidential candidate embarked on a tour of certain countries to understudy what they were doing in critical areas of infrastructure development. Not only that, he also embarked on a tour of the different states to also understudy what the pressing needs are. And this formed the basis for the manifesto of the party. So the question you have asked, during elections, during electioneering campaigns, the parties campaign on the basis of their manifesto. What it means is that when they are elected, they will implement that manifesto, which is the manifesto of the party. If the needs of the people have not been properly articulated into the manifesto of the party, then you have a problem. At that point, it is no longer the problem of the political party. It is the problem of the electorate, which is why in America, they often refer to the Tocqueville, what you call the Tocqueville, a French philosopher and a political researcher, who stated that in every electioneering process, the people get the government that they deserve. So the government you get is the government that you deserve because that is the government you voted for. The government that we have in Nigeria is the government that we deserve because that is the government we voted for. So it is why as electorate, we must be careful in looking at the manifesto of the political parties. We must invite the candidates to talk to us about the manifesto of their political parties. If we fail to do this, whatever we get at the end of the day is what we deserve. This is why the Electoral College has packaged this politeracy program for us to understand that as a people, as a citizen, we have a role in the kind of government that we get. Failure to do this will land us wherever we find ourselves in. I want to end by leaving you with these thoughts. Thank you very much for your questions. They are very engaging, very interesting. And I will hand over to the moderator for some final remarks.
Very much, sir. I believe that we have all unlearned and relearned in this class, and we really appreciate you for that. So I'm going to unmute everybody to say thank you for this awesome lecture because it is really insightful and impactful. So I'm going to unmute everybody. So let's say thank you to our facilitator for today.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Really
much, sir.
appreciate you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
I love you all.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Chalia, is there any announcement for today?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for this beautiful and insightful class. It's been a very great delight having you around. So we see you again in our next class. So thank you very much, Mariam, for the beautiful moderation this weekend. So assignments will drop this week. So we should all watch out for that and attempt all assignments given. And classes will continue next weekend. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night, first. Bye.
Thank you, Charlie, and good night, everyone.
Okay, good night. Night, everybody. Bye.